Well, good morning, students, and today we will be starting with another short story from your text, Footprints Without Feet. All right, this is this eighth chapter in your text titled The Hack Driver by Sinclair Lewis. Now, this is a very interesting story about a young lawyer who is given the responsibility to serve summons to a certain individual named Oliver Lutkins. All right, now what is a summons? When you are ordered to appear in court. All right, that order is known as a summons. So he was an advocate and he was given the job of finding Lutkins, and handing him a summons. Now, this is the story about what went throughout the day in his search for the individual named Lutkins. Alright, with this we start the story. Once again, The Hack Driver by Sinclair Lewis. After graduating with honors, I became a junior assistant clerk in a magnificent law firm. I was sent not to prepare legal briefs, but to serve summons like a cheap private detective. I had to go to dirty and shadowy corners of the city to seek out my victims. Some of the larger and more confident ones even beat me up. I hated this unpleasant work and the sight of city life it revealed to me. I even considered fleeing to my hometown where I could have been a real lawyer right away without going through this unpleasant training period. So I rejoiced one day when they sent me 40 miles in the country to a town called New Million to serve summons on a man called Oliver Lutkins. We needed this man as a witness in a law case, and he had ignored all our letters. When I got to New Million, my eager expectations of a sweet and simple country village were severely disappointed. Its streets were rivers of mud with rows of wooden shops, either painted a sour brown or bare of any paint at all. The only agreeable sight about this place was the delivery man at the station. He was about 40, red-faced, cheerful, and thick about the middle. His working clothes were dirty and well-worn. He had a friendly manner. You felt at once that he liked people. I told him, to find a man named Oliver Lutkins. Lutkins? I saw him around here half an hour ago. Hard fellow to catch, though. Always up to something or other. He's probably trying to start up a poker game at the back of Fidget's shop. I'll tell you, boy, is there any hurry about locating Lutkins? Yes, I want to catch the afternoon train back to the city. I was very important and secret about it. I tell you what, I've got a hack. I'll get it out and we can drive around together and find Lutkins. I know most of the places he hangs out. He was so open and friendly that I glowed with the warmth of his affection. I knew, of course, that he wanted the business, but his kindness was real. I was glad the fair money would go to his good fellow. I managed to bargain down to $2 an hour, and when he bought from his house nearby a sort of large black box on wheels, he remarked, "Well, young man, here's the carriage." And his wide smile made me into an old friend. These villagers are so ready to help a stranger. He had already made it his own task to find Oliver Lutkins for me. He said, "I don't want to interfere, young fellow, but my guess is that you want to collect some money from Lutkins. He never pays anybody a cent. He still owes me 50 cents on poker game. I was fool enough to play with him. He's not really bad, but it's hard to make him part with his money. If you try to collect from him in those fancy clothes, he'll be suspicious and get away from you. If you want, I'll go into Fizzet's and ask for him, and you can keep out of sight behind me." I loved him for this. By myself, I might never have found Lutkins. With the hack driver's knowing help, I was sure of getting my man. I took him into my confidence and told him that I wanted to serve the summons on Lutkins, that the man had refused to be a witness, when on information would have quickly settled our case. The driver listened earnestly. At the end, he hit me on the shoulder. He hit me on the shoulder and laughed. Well, let's give Brother Lutkins a little surprise. So, the story begins with the introduction of our protagonist, that is the advocate. He tells us a bit about himself. He tells us that he's an advocate and is working for a very big firm. But his job comprises only of giving summons. He's not doing a real advocate's work. And he hates it. Right? He doesn't like the city life. There were times when the person whom he was serving summons to was so big that they beat him up. And at times he felt that he should just go back to his country, where he would be an advocate straight away. He could act as a lawyer. But one day he was very pleased, all right, because he was sent to the countryside, the country of New Million, to serve summons to a certain man named Oliver Lutkins, who was supposed to be a witness for a case. But when he reached there, his thoughts about the country life were smashed, because it was nothing like he had imagined. It was very dirty, all right, it was muddy, the roads were all muddy, the shops were very boring. But in the midst of all this, he found a rather cheerful man who had a very friendly composure about him. And when he told him about who he was after, he said that, let me help you, all right, I have a hack, I have a horse carriage, you can pay me, I will help you find Lutkins, because Lutkins is not an easy man to be found. He is very cunning. So if you would like, I will offer you my services, for which you can pay me my carriage fees. And the advocate was really glad that he had found such a friendly man in a new place. And as they were talking, as they were traveling in his hack, that is his horse carriage, the hack driver told the advocate that since Lutkins is a very cunning man, he may not come in front of the guy who is in city clothes. All right, he may be afraid because he owes a lot of people a lot of money. So let me do the talking. You just stay in the cart and we'll go to a place called Fritzy. Let me find Lutkins for him. And so begin their pursuit of the individual named Oliver Lutkins. Well, let's continue. Let's start, driver. Most folks around here call me Bill or Mugginson. My business is called William Mugginson Fancy Carting and Hacking. All right, Bill, shall we proceed to Fritz? Yes. Lutkins is just as likely to be there as anywhere. Plays a lot of poker. Is good at deceiving people. Bill seemed to admire Lutkins' talent for dishonesty. I feel that if he had been a policeman, he would have caught Lutkins respectfully and jailed him with regret. Bill led me into Fritz's. Have you seen Oliver Lutkins around today? Friend of his looking for him, said Bill cheerfully. Fritz looked at me, hiding behind Bill. He hesitated and then admitted, yes, he was here a little while ago. Guess he's gone over to Gustav's to get a shave. So finally, the hack driver introduced himself to our advocate. He said that his name is Bill, all right, and he has a business of hack driving. And he told the advocate about how Lutkins was very good at poker, how he was good at doing this, how he was good at doing that. And the advocate felt that this fellow, Bill, is very knowledgeable and he has a certain admiration for Lutkins, all right. He sort of admires Lutkins for what he is capable of, or what Lutkins as a person is. So they finally enter Fritz, and then Bill asked Fritz, have you seen Lutkins? And Fritz saw our advocate hiding behind Bill, and he said rather hesitatingly that yes, Lutkins was here just a while ago. I think he has gone off to Gustav's for a shave. Well, if he comes in, tell him I'm looking for him. We drove to Gustav's barber shop. Again, Bill went in first, and I lingered at the door. He asked not only the Swede but two customers if they had seen Lutkins. The Swede had not, he said angrily. I haven't seen him and I don't care to. But if you find him, you can just collect that $1.35 he owes me. One of the customers thought that he had seen Lutkins walking down Main Street, the side of the hotel. As we climbed back to the hack, Bill concluded that since Lutkins has exhausted his credit at Gustav's, he had probably gone to Gray's for a shave. At Gray's barber shop, we missed Lutkins by only 5 minutes. He had just left, probably for the pool room. At the pool room, it appeared that he had just bought a pack of cigarettes and gone out. So we pursued him, just behind him, but never catching him, for an hour till it was past 1 o'clock. I was hungry, but I had so enjoyed Bill's rough country opinions about his neighbors that I scarcely cared whether I found Lutkins or not. And so the process of finding Lutkins was this, all right. Since Bill had told our advocate that if you go in straight away in your city clothes, if Lutkins sees you, he will run away. So he said that let me first go to wherever we are going. I'll talk to the owner, and if Lutkins is not there, I'll call you inside. So in that way, they visited a lot of places. All right, someone told them that I don't care about Lutkins. In fact, if you see him, please tell him that I want my $1.35 back. Other person told him that he had just seen Lutkins walk into a pool room. When they went to the pool room, the people at the pool room told them that Lutkins had just purchased a pack of cigarettes and went out. So it was a search, an endless search for Lutkins, and every time they just missed him by a few minutes. And in this way, it was almost past 1 in the afternoon. Our advocate was hungry, but then he was enjoying the company of the hack driver, that he did not care about hunger. All right, he was having entertaining time talking to the hack driver, how he was telling him about the different neighbors or the different people in the neighborhood. How about something to eat? I suggested. Let's go to a restaurant and I'll buy you lunch. Well, I ought to go home to the wife. I don't care much for these restaurants. Only 4 of them and they're all bad. Tell you what we'll do. We'll get the wife to pack up lunch for us. She won't charge you more than half a dollar. And it would cost you more than a greasy meal in a restaurant. And we'll go up to Wade's Hill and enjoy the view while we eat. So as he was hungry, the advocate told Bill, let's get something to eat at a restaurant, all right? I'll buy you lunch. And the hack driver said, there are only 4 restaurants in this town and none of them are any good. They're all greasy. The food is not good. Let me tell you something. Why don't we ask my wife to pack us lunch? All right? She won't charge you more than half a dollar. It will be much cheaper than what you would pay at a restaurant to eat bad food. And then I'll take you to a place from where you'll get a good view and we will enjoy our lunch there. I know that Bill's helpfulness to the young fellow from the city was not entirely a matter of brotherly love. I was paying him for the time. In the end, I paid him for 6 hours, including the lunch hour, at what was then a very high price. But he was no more dishonest than I. I charged the whole thing to the firm. But it would have been worth paying him myself to have his presence. His cheerful country wisdom was very refreshing to a country boy like myself who was sick of the city. As we sat on the hilltop, looking at the pastures and creek which slipped among the trees, he talked of New Million and painted a picture in words of all the people in it. He noticed everything, but no matter how much he might laugh at people, he noticed, but no matter how much he described the minister's wife who sang the loudest in church when she was most in debt. He commented on the boys who came back from college in fancy clothes. He told about the lawyer whose wife could never succeed in getting him to put on both a collar and a tie at the same day. He made them all live. On that day, I came to know New Million better than I did in the city and to love it better. Bill didn't know about the colleges and cities, but he had traveled around a lot of the country and had lots of jobs. From his adventures, he had brought back a philosophy of simplicity and laughter that strengthened me. We left that peaceful scene of meadows and woods and resumed our search of Oliver Lutkins. We could not find him. At last, Bill cornered a friend of Lutkins and made him admit what he guessed. Oliver's gone out to his mother's farm, 3 miles south. We drove out there, laying plans. I know Oliver's mother. She's a terror, Bill sighed. I took a trunk out for her once, and she almost took my skin off because I didn't treat it like a box of eggs. She's about 9 feet tall and 4 feet thick and quick as a cat, and she sure can talk. I'll bet Oliver heard that somebody's chasing him and he's gone on there to hide because behind his mother's skirts. Well, we'll try her, but you better let me do it, boy. You may be great at literature and law, but you haven't had real training in swearing. We drove to a poor farmyard. We were faced by an enormous and cheerful old woman. My guide bravely went up to her and said, "Remember me? I'm Bill Magnusson, the carter and the hackman. I want to find your son Oliver." "I don't know anything about Oliver, and I don't want to," she shouted. "Now look here, we've had just about enough nonsense. This young man represents the court in the city, and we have a legal right to search all properties for this Oliver Lutkins." Bill made me sound very important, and the woman was impressed. She retired into the kitchen and we followed. She seized an iron from the old-fashioned stove and marched on us shouting, "You search all you want to, if you don't mind getting burned first." She shouted and laughed at our frightened retreat. "Let us get out of here. She'll murder us," Bill whispered. Outside, he said, "Did you see her smile? She was laughing at us." I agreed that it was pretty disrespectful treatment. We did, however, searched the house, since it was only 1 story high. Bill went round it, peering in at all windows. We examined the barn, the stable. We were reasonably certain that Lutkins was not there. It was nearly time for me to catch the afternoon train, and Bill drove me to the station. On the way to the city, I worried very little over my failure to find Lutkins. I was too busy thinking about Bill Magnusson. Really, I considered returning to New Million to practice law. If I had found Bill so deep and richly human, might I not grow to love Fritz and Gustav and 100 other slow-spoken, simple, wise neighbors? I pictured an honest and happy life beyond the strict limits of universities and law firms. I was excited. I had found a treasure. I had discovered a new way of life. But if I did not think much about Lutkins, the office did. I found them all upset. Next morning, the case was coming up in the court, and they had to have Lutkins. I was a shameful, useless fool. The morning, my promising legal career almost came to an end before it had begun. The chief almost murdered me. He hinted that I might do well at digging ditches. I was ordered back to New Million, and with me went a man who had worked with Lutkins. I was rather sorry, because it would prevent me loafing all over again with Bill. When the train arrived at New Million, Bill was on the station platform near his cart. Strangely enough, that old tigress, Lutkins' mother, was there, talking and laughing with Bill, not quarreling at all. From the train steps, I pointed Bill to my companion and said, "There's a fine fellow, a real man. I spent a day with him." And so, finally, as they were having lunch, our advocate started admiring New Million for what it was. All right, he was a very good talker, the hack driver. He told him about all the people who were there living at New Million, the kind of person they were, the kind of simple life they were living. So, if you remember in the beginning of the chapter, he did not like New Million because he had a different image in his mind. But then, the way the hack driver painted New Million for him, along with its people, he enjoyed it very much. In fact, he liked it so much that he wanted to sort of want to settle there in New Million itself, start a legal career there. So the last hope of finding Lutkins came when Bill confronted Lutkins, one of Lutkins' friends, and he told him that he had seen Lutkins go towards his mother's house. So they went to his mother's place, and there too they could not find Lutkins. In fact, they almost had a verbal argument with Lutkins' mother. So in total, Bill paid for 6 hours at $2 an hour, that is $12. And though it was a very hefty sum, the advocate did not mind paying for it because his firm was paying for it. Alright, he wasn't paying it from his pocket. But then he even made a comment that even if he had to pay it, he wouldn't have minded at all because Bill was very good company. He enjoyed his stay, his day-long stay at New Million, after which he went back. And he was very happy, and he did not care whether he found Lutkins or not, but then his employers did. He got into trouble at the firm. They told him that you are an idiot, alright, you could not find Lutkins. If we can't find Lutkins by tomorrow, then we are going to lose the case. And so this time, he was sent back to New Milligan once again with another person who had personally worked with Lutkins. So he was kind of disappointed to have new company because now he could not loiter around with Bill. As he reached the station, the first person he saw in the station was Bill himself, the hack driver. And along with him was Lutkins' mother. And they were not arguing at all. They were laughing, talking. And then our advocate, remember he has a new friend with him, alright, someone who knows Lutkins. So he pointed out Bill to him and he said, "This is a very fine young fellow who I spent a day with. He helped you hunt for Oliver Lutkins." So that person who was accompanying him wanted to know, is this the person who helped you look for Oliver Lutkins? And our advocate said, "Yes, he helped me a lot." And then the bomb drops, alright. Then the person who was accompanying our lawyer opens his mouth and he says, "Well, he must have. It's Lutkins himself." So the whole time he was searching around for Lutkins, he was with Lutkins. Bill, the hack driver, was actually Lutkins, and the advocate had now made a fool of himself in front of entire state of Mulligan because he was roaming around with Lutkins throughout the town asking others about Lutkins. What really hurt me was when I served the summons. Lutkins and his mother laughed at me as though I were a bright boy of 7. With loving kindness, they begged me to go with them to a neighbor's house for a cup of coffee. "I told them about you, and they were anxious to look at you," said Lutkins joyfully. "They are the only folks in the town that missed seeing you yesterday." Still, alright, they were very kind. Lutkins was still kind to him. He said, "You must come with me to my neighbor's place for a cup of coffee. They are the only person in the entire town who did not see you yesterday." So he had been paraded in front of the entire town by Lutkins while telling the people that this man is an important man, an advocate from the city who is here searching for Lutkins. So this city boy had been made a fool of by a country fellow named Oliver Lutkins, who had just pretended that he was Bill, a guy named Bill, and he was a hack driver named Bill. In fact, he was the Lutkins that the advocate had been searching all around for. Alright, now with this we come to the end of the chapter. Have a good afternoon.